Hello, my name is Roxy Lee, and today I will be presenting Just Passing By, the way skin tone facilitates our identity formation. Today I'm going to be taking you on a journey about the research I've been doing for the past year. Abstract. Understanding identity formation amongst Latinx in higher institutions is often a topic that gets overlooked. Existing literature focuses primarily on Latinx identity formation through dimensions such as time, space, and perceptions, leaving a dearth of literature that looks at all three of those factors combined. Through this research, the question asked is, how does Latinx racial identity formation shift over place and time? Focusing on 10 self-identified Latinx students at the University of Oregon from diverse and non-diverse backgrounds helps to understand how students of this specific institution undergo identity shifts in response to experiences in college. Looking at the distinct space of higher education institutions during young adulthood will lead to an understanding of Latinx students' identity formation and how it may have shifted pre-college compared to being in college. The results indicate that with experiences that include racist discourse, feeling like an outcast, and finding meaning through campus involvement, Latinx at the University of Oregon undergo formational experiences that result in a deeper and better understanding of their ethnic identity. So, just to introduce this topic, Latinos, Latinas, Latinx students face questions of identity in a much different way as they are seen as the racial middle. So, formation in higher educational institutions is often overlooked, with focuses being on other groups instead of Latinx and groups such as those. This thesis seeks to answer the question with a focus on Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, racial identity formation, shift over place and time. A note on some previous works. Previous literature has focused on many aspects of Latinx life, but often overlooks how they function in higher education institutions. Literature also focuses on various dimensions of space and time, such as adolescence and the working environment, but overlooks a pivotal point, such as entering college. Often, literature doesn't even focus on college, or if they do, it's only on first generation students instead of maybe second or third generation, as more Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx people are coming to college and getting educated in these higher education institutions. Beauty standards, campus involvement, finding meaning through friendships are all areas that have not been looked at specifically through a higher education frame, and through this research have become extremely prevalent. Here are some guiding frameworks. External racial identity, which is observers' beliefs about an individual race. Racial identity mismatch, the discrepancy between an individual's self-identification and how they believe others see them, as well as flexible ethnicity, the ability to deftly and effectively navigate different racial terrains and be considered an insider in more than one racial or ethnic group. And finally, racial labeling. The process of racial labeling starts with geography, culture, and family ties and runs through economics and politics and not the other way around. So, with these four frameworks, they help guide the research and also help to have a deeper understanding of the experiences that a lot of these Latinx students face coming to this institution. Methodology. So, for this, I chose to do qualitative methods. I did 10 in-depth interviews with a variety of students at the University of Oregon. I was actually able to get funding through UROP, and I was able to compensate each interviewee, which made it very special and helped give them a thank you for their time, as well as give me many people to interview. So for this interview, I would ask 12 questions and maybe some follow-ups depending on answers, and these interviews will last anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes and would take place at any spot on campus, mostly at the EMU. I was able to interview a range of Latino, Latina, and Latinx students at the University of Oregon, all with very unique backgrounds and stories. This made it possible to understand a multitude of experiences and be able to make connections and find common themes. Although many of these interviewees were from Oregon or California, the experiences they had were very specific to the place they grew up in, and therefore helped display a wide range of experiences. So although some people were both from Northern California, depending on where they lived, what city, the ethnic enclaves of that group, they would have very different experiences, which was actually very amazing and made me be able to have such a diverse understanding of experiences that these people have faced, although they may not have been from two different sides of the country. Now, here are the findings. There are 5 key themes that were prevalent, and I'll go through each one. There's a little quotation of what each interviewee has said, but there's so much more to be explained. So, growing up diverse, this is a key theme that for some of these students who grew up in Latino communities or were around just many different ethnicities, they had a very different experience, so that when they came to University of Oregon, they saw it as a predominantly white institution and therefore were in a way culture shocked. LD says, we have a tight Latin community. Everybody knows each other and it's kind of like a big family. This just goes to show, the kind of place that these people would grow up in, some of them, where they really felt connected to their culture and were around people who would promote it. And then as soon as they came to the University of Oregon, they had a very different experience. They did not see people that look like themselves, and they did not have that experience any longer. This resulted in them questioning who they were or ways to promote their ethnicity or stay rooted in their culture, even though it wasn't around them the way it once was. Another key theme is being an outcast. Many of these students, when they came here, no longer felt seen or heard. They felt like they didn't belong. MS explains, it's hard to relate to them because they don't understand me or my culture, and I don't understand them. We are just very different. Now, some people may not fully understand or may have experienced how much culture could bring you a sense of safety, but it does. And for many of these students, leaving their culture or leaving their homes, entering a new institution full of people with many different backgrounds and experiences, they really felt like an outsider or an outcast, not looking in a room and seeing people that look like themselves, but instead the opposite. And for many of these people, they felt that the University of Oregon was not a very diverse institution and it was predominantly white, which was a new experience. Another key theme was unreachable beauty standards. When talking with the people who identified as a woman, they had many thoughts on the fact that they felt a need to dye their hair lighter or adhere to the mainstream beauty standards, which typically surrounds white characteristics, white phenotypes. LRA says, since I went to UO, I feel more influenced. Nobody will directly tell you to look that way, but it makes me insecure that I don't. I think maybe I should look like that or act like that. I've had various identity issues because I felt out of place. So a lot of these women who come to this university feel like their darker Latina characteristics don't belong, that they need to dye their hair or they need to look a certain way in order to belong or to fit in, which is much different than the way many of them felt growing up. Finding belonging through involvement. This became key as I interviewed many students who were part of a variety of campus organizations that were rooted in being Latino, Latina, Latinx. CS says, with Mecha, I try to involve myself a lot as new opportunities arise. This past year, I spoke on stage, which is something I did not think I would ever do. So for these students, they need to find a way to feel connected to their culture, to feel connected to their ethnicity. And they were able to do it through campus involvement. And this in turn is pushing them out of their comfort zone. Instead of just being a bystander, they are now going out of their way to help educate and bring others in. And it's really empowering to see that not only CS, but other students that I've interviewed have felt the same way, have become more involved in campus than they ever were in high school or anything prior, and are now wanting to help educate others, be around others who help promote their ethnicity. It gives them a sense of belonging, a sense of confidence, and in a way, a second family. The last key theme that I will touch on is racist discourse. Now, for many of the students I had interviewed, they come from such diverse places that they never had dealt with the comments that some people will make. They were around people that looked just like them, that understood. And coming to a PWI really changed things for them. MB says, I feel like it's just a lot of microaggressive comments that people don't necessarily know that they're making. Coming from Southern California, I've never had experience anything like this before. So for many of these students, they come to this place and they're surrounded by new cultures, new people, and they're getting some microaggressive comments that they were not used to before. This is true for 8 out of the 10 people I interviewed. They felt like they had been targeted in some sort of way since coming to the University of Oregon, which is extremely interesting, especially many of them thought that this would be a safe space since the university promotes the diversity, but in their personal experiences, they did not have that. So, what is this research saying? Well, there were some limitations when doing this research, and some of them were sample size. So the fact that I was only able to interview and talk to 10 students at the University of Oregon is really limited, which means that this research, although interesting and it should lead to further discussion, it just cannot be applied as broadly. As well as that this research only focused on students from the University of Oregon. So these experiences are truly only unique to the University of Oregon and to these 10 students. It's hard to broadly apply with the sample size being smaller and it being from only one university, as well as this research only focused on students with a higher education degree and going to a higher education institution. So this maybe not be able to be applied to like community college or other institutions, but just the University of Oregon and just these students, as well as many of these students were only from California or Oregon, or we had you know, the West Coast. So this really is only telling of those people and where they are from. But with that, I mean, the research still encompasses as much as it possibly could, and it leads to a discussion of where further research should take place. Due to the dearth of data and literature, it is evident that this topic needs to be further explored. There is a need for that, and there is a need for people to look at Latinos in a higher education institution and their experiences. Focusing on a variety of institutions and a multitude of cultures and ethnicities would help create a deeper understanding. The experiences that Latinos, Latinas, Latinx undergo in a college environment are important and should be looked at. So to conclude, through looking at the experiences of 10 Latino, Latina, Latinx students at the University of Oregon, we can have a deeper understanding of their experiences at this institution and how it has played a role in identity formation. Looking at identity formation through the specific frame is extremely important because it is the first time these students are in a new environment. You're away from home, or maybe you're commuting, but you're around so many new people in comparison to high school or where these people were previously. For most students, they may be from out of town or even state, which results in a completely new experience. For those students who may be more local, it is still a new environment filled with unfamiliar phases of life and experiences and a variety of experiences. As humans, the way we perceive ourselves often comes from the perception of others. In college, we are surrounded by other people who may view us differently than the way we were once viewed or viewed ourselves. This ultimately results in a shift in identity formation. And through these interviews, we have been able to see that. Looking at 10 students at the University of Oregon who have been open about their experiences has displayed the racial diversity they felt or lack of depending on the situation. Learning how various factors have helped shape or inhibit their formation at a higher education institution is vital to understanding the process. So, as we know, like we are able to understand ourselves, but the way people view us plays a key role. So, the experiences that these students have at the University of Oregon are key to understanding how they become more influenced by their culture or go away. Through the racist discourse, it truly depends on if they're going to be more rooted in their culture or try to assimilate to the mainstream of what's happening in society. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I still have so much more to share, and I especially want to give a shout out to my advisor, Professor Vasquez Tocos, and the whole sociology department for helping me fulfill this, do research, help get funding, and really explore a topic that is so important. Thank you.